Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Spanish lesson.
Today is going to be our last video on our series on the Spanish compound tenses. Today we're going to go over the past perfect subjunctive. So by the end of this video, you're going to know what it is, when to use it, how to conjugate it. We'll go into tricky things like using it with direct and indirect object pronouns, reflexive pronouns. We're going to get into everything. And you know we always provide plenty of examples to test out what you've learned. After this lesson, if you'd like to see our other videos on the compound tenses, we'll leave the links to those videos in the description below.
Remember, with each compound tense, we're just going to take what we've already learned using haber plus a past participle and apply it in a new way.
That's right. Now, just like we use the present perfect subjunctive to talk about something that has happened, we're going to use the past perfect subjunctive to talk about something that had happened. So basically there are three main reasons why we use the past perfect subjunctive. Now the first way uses the same triggers as the present perfect subjunctive. So remember our WEIRDO acronym.
It stands for wishes, emotions, impersonal expressions, recommendations, doubts or denial, and ojalá.
So for example, we could say, it made me happy that they had arrived on time.
Me alegró que ellos hubieran llegado a tiempo.
So in this structure, we see that we have a subjunctive trigger. Me alegró is an emotion. And the action in the dependent clause, had arrived, happened before the action in the main clause, I was glad. Now, normally the present perfect subjunctive is used when the main verb is in the present tense. And the past perfect subjunctive is used when the main verb is in the past tense. But sometimes these can change and the main verb can be in the past tense and can have the subordinate clause be in the present or the past. So this is something that's really confusing to students, and we're going to talk more about this at the end of this lesson. But for now, let's see our second reason why we use the past perfect subjunctive.
We also use the past perfect subjunctive to express hypothetical situations with the structure see plus the past perfect subjunctive, where our next verb is gonna be in the conditional perfect tense.
Now, I know that sounds really complicated, so let's get into some examples. Remember, in all these cases, these are hypotheticals. These didn't happen, but we're expressing what we would have done if something else were true. So we could say, if we had arrived earlier, we would have seen the show.
Si hubiéramos llegado temprano, habríamos visto el espectáculo.
So here you see our structure. We have si, and then the past perfect subjunctive, hubiéramos llegado, and then our next verb in the main clause is in the conditional perfect, habríamos visto. Let's see another example. If I had known, I would have come.
Si lo hubiera sabido, habría venido.
So this is our second way to use the past perfect subjunctive with hypothetical situations. Now, we've already brought up ojalá in our WEIRDO acronym in the first way that we use past perfect subjunctive. And it's also a part of our third reason that we use it, where we use como si or ojalá when we express regret or a what-if scenario or something that we wish had happened but didn't. It's really when we refer to impossible or unfulfilled past events. So let's see a few examples. I wish I had studied more.
Ojalá hubiera estudiado más.
So I wish I had studied more, but I didn't, and I can't change that fact. Now remember, ojalá in the present tense means hope, but when we have it in the past like this, it means wish. It's something we wish we would have done, but didn't. He spent money as if he had won the lottery.
Gastó dinero como si hubiera ganado la lotería.
Now this didn't happen, but it's sort of like a what-if situation. Now before we go on, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to give us a like and subscribe to the channel if you still haven't. Okay, now how do we conjugate the past perfect subjunctive?
We use the imperfect subjunctive of haber plus a past participle. Don't forget, there are two forms of the imperfect subjunctive of haber, hubiera and hubiese.
Now, these are completely interchangeable, but hubiera is more common in Latin America, so that's what we're going to be using in this lesson.
So, haber will be yo hubiera, tú hubieras, él, ella o usted hubiera, Nosotros, nosotras, hubiéramos. Vosotros, vosotras, hubierais. Ellos, ellas, o ustedes hubieran. And remember, past participles are formed by, for AR verbs, we replace the AR with ado. So, for example, hablar would become hablado. For ER or IR verbs, we replace the ER or IR with ido. So, for example, comer would become comido, and vivir, vivido.
And as we've said in our previous compound tense videos, some verbs have irregular past participles. Now, these are the most common ones, and you can pause the video here if you'd like to write them down. But since irregular past participles don't change no matter what tense you're using, if you've already learned these, there's nothing new that you need to learn here. But let's just do one quick example using an irregular past participle. For example, we could say, I doubt that he had written it.
Dudaba que él lo hubiera escrito.
So if escribir would be regular, we would have seen escribido, but it's irregular, so we need to make sure we're correctly putting escrito.
Really quick, we want to thank our supporters and members. Your support helps us create lessons like this to improve your Spanish. Muchas gracias.
Okay, now how do we use the past perfect subjunctive when dealing with direct and indirect object pronouns and reflexive pronouns?
Pronouns will always go before the verb phrase, just like in the present perfect subjunctive.
Okay, so for example, if we wanted to use an indirect object pronoun, we could say something like, I would have liked it.
Me hubiera gustado.
So we can't say hubiera me gustado or hubiera gustado me. We have to have the me before the verb phrase. Let's see one with both an indirect and direct object pronoun. So what if we said, we would have told it to him?
Se lo hubiéramos dicho a él.
So we can't say, hubiera se lo dicho, hubiéramos dicho se lo hubiéramos dicho. And one more, let's see a reflexive pronoun. What if we were to say, you would have taken a shower?
Te hubieras bañado.
So te and then hubieras bañado. Now before we get into all of our final examples, we want to go through a specific example so that you really understand the difference between the present perfect subjunctive and the past perfect subjunctive, because it can get really tricky when the main verb is in the past tense. Now in both these cases, the action in the subordinate clause happened before the action in the main clause, but there's a subtlety in expressing the difference between having done something and had done something. So let's see these two examples. It made me happy that you've come to the party.
Me alegró que hayas venido a la fiesta.
It made me happy that you had come to the party.
Me alegró que hubieras venido a la fiesta.
In both cases, the main verb is an emotion and triggers the subjunctive. Now, although in both cases the main verb is in the past tense, the dependent clause can use the present or the past perfect subjunctive depending on what you want to express.
The present perfect translates to that you have come,
And this action feels more recent and relevant.
while the past perfect translates to you had come.
And that action feels more completed and distant. Knowing that, let's see another example with the two. We were disappointed that you failed this semester.
Nos decepcionó que hayas reprobado este semestre.
We were disappointed that you had failed this semester.
Nos decepcionó que hubieras reprobado este semestre.
See the difference? Let us know in the comments if this is still something that's difficult for you to understand. But for now, let's go over some more examples and see if you can answer along with Darcy. We'll do a few examples each from our WEIRDO acronym. But first, if you haven't yet become a member of our community, you're missing out on tons of exclusive benefits. We have links in this video for Patreon memberships where we do extra video lessons every month, audio listening comprehensions, as well as exclusive posts. We have YouTube memberships where we have exclusive posts, and we have a link to Buy Me a Coffee where you can donate to support the channel. We once again just want to thank everybody who has supported us to help improve your Spanish. Okay, so in our WEIRDO acronym, W is for wishes, wants, or commands. So for example, we could say something like, I wished you had invited me for a coffee.
Deseaba que me hubieras invitado un café.
My grandchild wanted us to pay for it.
Mi nieto quería que se lo hubiéramos pagado.
So this is a great example of using direct and indirect objects where we see it's se lo hubiéramos pagado. We don't have them in the middle of the verb phrase or at the end. It always comes before the verb haber. Now, E is for emotions. So we could say something like, it made me sad that you hadn't remembered my birthday.
Me dio tristeza que no te hubieras acordado de mi cumpleaños.
She was happy that everyone was able to come to the annual family reunion.
Ella estaba feliz de que todos hubiéramos podido venir a la reunión anual familiar.
Now the I is for impersonal expressions. So we could say something like, it was strange that no one had called to congratulate her.
Era raro que nadie hubiera llamado para felicitarla.
It was important that you had trained before doing the hike.
Era importante que hubieras entrenado antes de hacer senderismo.
Now R is for recommendations or requests. So for example, they suggested that we had finished the forms before arriving or we would have to wait in line.
Recomendaron que hubiéramos llenado los formularios antes de llegar o tendríamos que formarnos.
The doctor had advised that she had rested more after the surgery.
El médico aconsejó que ella hubiera descansado más después de la cirugía.
Now D is for doubt or denial. So we could say something like, I wouldn't have believed that you had done it on purpose until he showed me the evidence.
No habría creído que lo hubieras hecho a propósito hasta que me mostró la evidencia.
My husband doubted that I would have worn it to the graduation ceremony.
Mi esposo dudaba que yo me lo hubiera puesto en la ceremonia de graduación.
And O is for ojalá. Now remember, when used with the present tense, it means to hope or hopefully, whereas using in the past tense, it means more like to wish. So for example, we could say something like, I wish you had taken advantage of the opportunity to apply for the position earlier.
Ojalá hubieras aprovechado la oportunidad para aplicarte en el puesto antes.
I wish they had arrived before the storm.
Ojalá ellos hubieran llegado antes de la tormenta.
Now, although we have kind of an older video dedicated to the 3 ways to use sí in Spanish that you can check out here or in the description of this video, let's go over a few examples of where we use the past perfect subjunctive in hypothetical situations using sí. Remember, these are hypothetical situations that didn't happen, and our structure is always sí plus the past perfect subjunctive, and the next verb will be in the conditional perfect. So for example, we could say, if you had accompanied me to the movies, I would have bought you popcorn.
Si me hubieras acompañado al cine, os habría comprado palomitas.
So if you had done something, I would have done something. Let's see another one. If I had known it was your birthday, I would have brought you some flowers.
Si hubiera sabido que era tu cumpleaños, te habría traído algunas flores.
So if I had known, I would have done something. Now, something that can be confusing for students when they start speaking to real native Spanish speakers is that although the main clause is in the perfect conditional tense, in everyday conversation, you might actually hear the past perfect subjunctive used in both clauses. Let's see a quick example of what we mean here. If we had taken the other road, we wouldn't have gotten lost.
Si hubiéramos tomado el otro camino, no nos habríamos perdido. Or, si hubiéramos tomado el otro camino, no nos hubiéramos perdido. So, in everyday conversations, you'll hear both, but the first one, it's the one that's grammatically correct.
And to finish up, let's just see one more example where we use the past perfect subjunctive with our expression como si. So we could say something like, she looked at me as if I had ruined her whole day.
Me miró como si le hubiera arruinado el día.
And that's it. Don't forget to give a like to this video and subscribe to the channel if you still haven't.
Now watch this video to keep improving your Spanish.
Until next time.